这周的 Let's Talk 观点好谈，我们独家专访立陶宛外委会主席帕季格，要带您了解立陶宛如何不畏中方打压，深化与台关系。国际辩论社的 Let's Talk 观点好谈，我们今天要来讨论立陶宛在2021年的时候率先退出了由中国领导的17+1的合作机制。甚至是在之后呢，更是让台湾以台湾之名来在立陶宛的首都设立代表处。也因此，在这1年多以来，立陶宛遭到了中国在外交上面还有经济上面的强烈打压。立陶宛是如何顶住这样的压力，甚至是赢得这一场较量呢？Today, we're very honored to have the chairman of the Committee of the Foreign Affairs for the Parliaments of the Republic of Lithuania, Mr. Žygimantas Pavilionis, to join us in a discussion regarding Taiwan and Lithuania's special bond. Mr. Pavilionis, it's such an honor to have you with us on our program.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman Pavilionis, I'd like to ask you if you can kindly share with us your observation over the past few years regarding the special connection or the relationship progress between Taiwan and Lithuania. Is there a significant transformation?
Well, it seems it started decades ago, where I'm still trying to check the facts. But my recent diplomatic position, I was ambassador in Washington, D.C., and my embassy in Washington, D.C. was open for 50 years of our occupation because Americans never recognized our occupation. So my embassy was open, but to keep it open, having no state, no salaries, because it was occupied by communists, by Soviets, we had to have some resources. So Americans supported us, we got some Latvian gold, but it seems that Republic of China was shipping cash to us during that period, so you helped us to survive. That's why our George Washington of Lithuania, Vytautas Landsbergis, the one who broke away from Soviet Union, he knew Taiwan from the very beginning. Wow. And when we entered the young generation, I came here 4 years ago, I was simply shocked and surprised. I never saw Taiwan in my life, and I simply understood that this is a very similar story. We are fighting autocratic giants that wants to annihilate us. We resist, we are very strong people, we are very well educated, but we don't know each other. And I was so shocked that no Baltic country has a representation in Taiwan, and we don't know you. So after this trip of 4 years, I wrote an article in Lithuanian media, let's do something. But I was in opposition then. Then we took the power, and even in party program, we wrote that we will fight for freedom from Taiwan to Belarus. And we did it. We met your diplomats, and they asked us to name the representation as Taiwanese representation. We accepted it. Why not? Why should we bow to those communist demands and other pressures? And after 2 years of working, we are very happy. It's not only political; those are not only political contacts. Today, I'm already with Baltic chairmen, who also stopped being part of so-called 16+1. We were 17th country that left the format. Today they are also here to open the formats. Today we have first-grade business contacts. We are starting to cooperate on semiconductors. One of the enterprise that is stepping into cooperation with you might soon produce 5% of my country's GDP in this area. The laser industry, where we are one of the champions of the world, we produce some lasers that nobody produces. We just agreed to open the Center of Excellence in your Institute of Industrial Technologies, ITRI, yes, that's the name. And I think that will be big.
Yes.
And then biotechnologies, solar energy, Even as we talked, you produce now with your technologies about 10% of our salads. So little by little, I saw Lithuanian wine that was served at the meeting with your speaker. I see Lithuanian beers and chocolate. So little by little, we are starting this great journey of cooperation that should be your journey to European markets. You are not so present in Europe. You focus on this big, fight between giants, Americans and communist Chinese. But here we are, Europeans who are like you. And we appreciate what you do here. And if you want to enter European markets, it's sometimes better to enter, through the countries that are very similar to you.
Indeed. It's very exciting that you mentioned all these connections and collaborations between Taiwan and Lithuania. But you also point out a key word of semiconductor, which I would like to ask you about. There are certain reports that suggest Lithuania's favorable stance toward Taiwan has a U.S. influence or a desire to acquire Taiwan semiconductor technology. What do you think of these suggestions or any clarifications?
Well, it's Russian narrative. Moscow spreads a lot of lies and propaganda about not only Moscow. Actually, as we discovered in one of the meetings with your fact sheet checking company, and they are connected with our companies who fight against propaganda. Russians produce narratives and Communist Chinese repeats and distributes it in this world. The same Cuban communists do with Latin America. No, we did it. It was our decision. In most of the cases, it is our decision where Americans are not ready to meet those challenges. When we revolted against the Soviets, okay, that was 33 years ago. We've been receiving very cautious support from Washington. We've been receiving letters from the West. Don't do it. Stay with Gorbachev. He's so nice. We said no. We said no. It's our freedom. And in most of the cases, we were pushing Americans to support our freedom. They didn't want, from the very beginning, us to enter NATO. We lobbied 12 years to enter NATO. We used all our muscles. We have at least 1 million of Americans of Lithuanian descent, mostly around Chicago. So this story, Americans helped us to when we did those steps with you, when we said goodbye China, big mainland China with your wonderful divisive formats where you want to occupy us instead of making business, China sanctioned us heavily, like really seriously. Interestingly, that they did it in cooperation with Russia and Belarus. Russia has a war in the region, Belarus pushed migrants over our fence, and at the same moment when anti-vaxxers stormed the parliament, it was exactly the hour when China introduced all the sanctions. They even wanted to annihilate international businesses in Lithuania, German, French, British, American. If you produce one little finger in Lithuania, they wanted to stop the whole production. So European Union intervened. We have a case in WTO against China, favorable to us. America helped us to push China out. That was the help. The rest was done by our hands. We met a lot of people. I met personally a lot of diplomats, including your ambassadors. I call her B. Kim. She helps me in Washington to operate, but on some other issues like Ukraine. We are fighting for Ukrainians to win and Russia to lose this game. We want this bully to stay because if they win, Xi will make, he already actually made his own conclusions on Taiwan. So yes, your ambassador in Washington is helping to fight the geopolitical war because she is powerful in Washington, D.C. But this was our decision because even in Soviet Union, when we've been occupied, we had very strong semiconductors industry or laser industry. Soviets, they were using our brains for military industry, like the Sputnik that was flying around the planet, half of it was made in Lithuania. So we have, well, of course, all those industries collapsed, but the brains existed, and our enterprise was doing the product, but they, most of the enterprises, they were making it for scientific purposes. Our market is small. We are like Taipei, size of Taipei. We are 3 million only, well, you are even bigger. So you have industrial applications, and we want to use our brains, to use our experiences for your industries. Small countries have to stay together, because autocratic countries, and that's something that you still have to do with China, autocratic countries makes you dependent. It's naive to think that you might change communists and thieves with your money and technology and trade. That was exactly the mistake the Europeans did. They invested into Putin. Putin was killing Chechens, was dismantling completely democracy inside of Russia, and good, naive Europeans, they were investing into Putin. Well, we did the same mistakes with communist China. So get rid of this market as soon as possible. Find countries like us, go to Europe. Now 98% of Lithuanian trade is just with 3 democratic countries that will never break your bones, twist your arms. This is the only way to survive, because if crisis happens, industries might collapse, and they will use every centimeter of dependencies, those autocratic countries, to kill your freedom. So don't do it. Don't feed the tiger.
So you also mentioned about the sanctions and also our geopolitical resemblance between Lithuania and Taiwan. I wonder if Lithuania also encounters the challenges of cognitive warfare, similar to Taiwan.
Oh, yes, and I think we are even more sensitive. We suspect we suspect any move. We feel any potential move of our enemies, because we live with Russians as neighbors for 1,000 years. We want to stop this war. We want to save rules-based order, because if big countries with great muscles start to annihilate countries like us, we are all in Russian and Chinese concentration camps. And 20 years of my life, I lived in Soviet Union. I saw my friends killed at TV Tower in '91 when Gorbachev sent the troops. 3 of my friends from my own school, that is still called January 13. Those are the events, atrocities, when they simply crashed us with tanks. That was our Tiananmen experience. But we won. We then, after TV was taken, TV Tower was taken, I ran to the parliament. We were 100,000 of us. And I remember the Gorbachev's tanks who stopped, because we were so many. They were afraid to kill thousands when TV screens and CNN was already reporting. And that was the first time in the history of Red Army that was stopped by civilian movement, by civil resistance. And when other republics got the message, they all got rid of those communists in Moscow. They transformed into KGB that still rules Russia, but you can do it. Being small, you can be great. So I see Taiwanese like this. I really believe that this communist system has no future. It eats itself. It's an evil, and those evil empires, they crawl very quickly. I didn't even believe how quickly the Soviet giant fell in front of my eyes. And now I laugh at them, because I still remember Gorbachev coming to Lithuania and saying, "Oh, you will die. You will not survive." You know what? Today we are one of the richest nations in Europe. Russian salaries and Russian atmosphere they are living, it's not even to compare with us. So go freedom way, democratic way, connect with democratic countries, build democratic alliances, make it via business, via politicians, via brains and universities, via cultures. Latvian chairman who came with me, he was coming here to Taiwan to dance into your Ilan region like a kid of 12 years. He still remembers that. And your speaker was organizing their dancing festival. And, you know, he came now like a chairman. He is nominated to foreign minister of his country.
That's so amazing.
So from little kids in Ilan, you have maybe a future Latvian foreign minister.
Indeed. That was a really inspiring process of, you know, fighting for the identity and also the freedom. And also, I do see that the trajectory of Taiwan's path toward the democratic evolution bears a lot of similarities with Lithuania. I wonder what is the courage that strengthens the people of Lithuania to fight for such identity and such freedom to inspire Taiwan?
I wrote a very strange doctoral dissertation thesis about John Paul II and his fight against the communism. Actually, they did it together with President Reagan. They created this called Holy Union Against Communism, and they won. The war is not over, but they won huge parts of European territories. And you know what was my conclusion and what actually linked those two leaders, John Paul II and Reagan? Human dignity, your personal strength. When you remember the first words of John Paul II when he was appointed the Pope, do not be afraid. When communist and autocratic giants finally understand that this little person who is standing in front of tank like in Tiananmen Square, he's not afraid, they stop. As your speaker said, he remembered the Baltic Way we did in '89, 2 million of people. Well, we made a first step, but when first step is made at once by many, this changes the history. So I hope that we will not be afraid to face the threats, because autocracies manipulate us through fear. And all those Chinese compatriots that are still living in this dictatorship that reminds me more and more Putin's hell, and even the demands of or ambitions of Xi to occupy Taiwan, to take it by force, for me it's signs of weakness. Because if you want to take millions by force, it seems you're not attractive. You know, you try to work it through fear and force. It doesn't work. You know, I still remember my father was listening to radio Europe. You know, in Soviet times, I was not able to sleep because he was always listening to that radio. And human dignity, your personal strength, your spiritual strength, it's something like Reagan was saying when he saw John Paul II on his first visit in '78, '9 to Poland. He starts crying. He writes it in his memoirs, because he understood that you cannot kill the human soul. You know, you can kill his body, but you not kill his soul. So they connected. Reagan and John Paul II started to work on it. You know, first organizations, first messages, and we revolted. We heard those statements. I remember I was standing in front of Soviet tank together with other deputy chief negotiator. Well, I was 16 years negotiating my country's membership in EU, and we were shouting at this tank, "What do you do with us?" And tank didn't kill us. Well, they killed one lady. It was rolled. She was 18. She was Tatar descent. She was killed by tank. We all remember that. But okay, Gorbachev saw our strength, and he stopped the killing machine. So I hope those people enslaved by those regimes one day say it's enough, because democracy is not racial. It's not genetic. Russians are trying to sell this idea, oh, we will never be democratic, or Chinese cannot be democratic. those are foolish lies. We are all born under the sun. We have our human dignity. Yes, we are different, but that's the beauty of it. But we all, under God's or God, we are created equal, and we have to fight for this equality and human dignity. And when we start fighting, those empires grow, or they change, or they start listening to the people and serve the people instead of suppressing them.
That's very well said. It's not the enemy that will defeat you. It's not anything, not the fear, and it's also your strength, your soul, and your dignity that can make us powerful. On behalf of Taiwanese people, it's very heartwarming to know the support that we're getting from Lithuania. Thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate your time.